Hey everyone, this is Alex, USA Days. So today I want to talk about red flags in your QA job. Now, this is not my post originally. I found this post on LinkedIn and I shared it on my profile. I'll have a description to this post under the video. I just wanted to give some reactions and my opinions based on the information. So this was posted by Alexandra Pshe. She's SDET and product manager at JetBrains, and she is talking about red flags in QA. If you work in a QA job, what are the red flags? One of the first red flags says that if you have a feeling or a treatment where developers seems to be better than QA engineers just because they are developers, that's one of the red flags, right? Now, I have a lot of respect to developers, but I also like what I do. I love my job. And I think there is a sense of pride in terms of testing because I know that when I work with the product, I do provide impact that hopefully improves user experience and also makes product better, gets product more, product becomes competitive, right? Or gets closer to a point where it is competitive, but also uh, it follows standards, right? So it makes it safe. So when there is that discussion or overall kind of culture that exposes kind of QA as inferior to development and says, okay, we're developers, we're better because we code, or we're just smarter than you, or QAs are just people that could not or did not become developers because they're not smart enough. It does take from the attitude. It can, right? So being in a culture where you just treat inferior because of of what the job you do, I think it's a red flag, and I agree with that. So my general approach to the job, my job, and other professions in tech or just in general is that I respect every job, and I think they're all important because in the end, everyone is doing their role uh, towards achieving goal, right? Doesn't matter much if you're cleaning the office and making sure it's clean, or you're thinking about a product and managing product. In the end, your goal gets closer the company to its ultimate goal, right? So, uh, getting out the best product, making employees happy, creating the right culture, and so on. Okay, so I definitely think if you have that feeling or you treat this way, this is something to consider as a red flag. Um, the second red flag is, you're judged by how much you've done. So how many bugs reported written, how many automation is created, and so on and so on. Metrics are great in general, but I think there's a lot of context. Like, what are you doing? What kind of things you're looking at? Um, are you putting perspective of a user when you're verifying product? Even though having metrics is great, and you should have metrics to a certain extent, but people can easily skew metrics just to be better at reporting things, right? I think what important is in the end, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, and if you're actually making product better, if you're impacting it, right? So if you're a team player, if you're part of the culture, but also if you bring something to the table, right? Your attitude, how do you work, what are you looking at? Even if you find a couple things in the end, the product is pretty stable, but maybe those couple things, going to save company millions of dollars. So just judging by how much is in a metric or shown, and that's like your ultimate measurement of how productive you are, I think, this is also a red flag. Um, so another red flag, and again, I'm just reading this over post and giving my opinion. I'll provide the post in description. Is that your job is code centric? So your job only exists if you have code and how much code you have in the end. Um, like if you have a lot of code, that means you're like extra productive. If you have little code, it's not that productive. At some point I read a story about Apple, just in the beginning of the Apple company, that the managers at Apple started measuring um, productivity of developers based on how much code they written. So that was like one of the KPIs, one of the reporting metrics. So if you write a lot of code, that means that you're doing great as a developer, and in our context, I guess as a tester. And if you don't write any code, you're not doing that great. And what ended up happening, because good code not necessarily means there's a lot of code, right? A lot of optimized code is actually you write less to do more kind of thing. You just try to make sure that the thing is stable, right? And it's doing what it's supposed to do. Uh, Preferably saving memory and making code more efficient. So less could be actually better, right? Um, so it's easy to start writing tons of code and put in a lot of comments or do whatever and just report, hey, how many lines of code I have. So from that experiment or that metric that was introduced in Apple, what I do remember, I don't remember the whole thing, like the whole story, but you can probably search and find the story. But just because they switched to that metric that started measuring how much code is written, they messed up pretty big just because people started putting a lot of empty code or just extra code just because they needed to report, hey, I did that amount of lines of code. The red flag number 4 is QA is responsible for all quality. Now, I've talked about that a lot on my channel. I have a video dedicated to that. But in general, my approach towards QA that QA have to talk about quality and promote quality. Of course, QA have to do quality assurance tasks, and it's your primary job. But quality, and this is the kind of mentality, you should advocate for that as a QA engineer. Quality should be everyone's responsibility. So when developer writes code, developer should think about quality and if code is doing what's supposed to do. When a product manager works on the stories, they have to think about that because quality in the end is everyone's responsibility, right? If we all think about quality when we work on the product, overall quality of the product will increase. If you'll have a mentality at work where, okay, we got QA, so we're just gonna write this and we're not gonna bother what's gonna be the outcome because QA will check it. That's their job. If they fail to find something, that means they did their job bad. This will ultimately lead to bad code, bad stories, bad experience for the user because this attitude will be kind of throw things over the fence to QA and see if it passes or not. It's gonna impact the product. It's gonna impact the product and it's gonna cost the company money in the long run. It's just gonna be a disaster. Okay. And last red flag is your manager has no clue what QA is. So managers would often ask, so how do we evaluate QA? How do we track progress? What are QA responsibility? So if manager knows nothing about QA and doesn't want to learn, then quality will be in trouble. Because they will start making things up to kind of, okay, let's keep QA busy. What is QA good for? And so on and so on. Without knowing what QA should be doing and what QA responsibilities, you might find yourself, well, when your manager doesn't know what QA should be doing, you might find yourself doing things that you're not really supposed to do just because it was told you by your manager and you never talked about, you didn't give any feedback, you didn't say, okay, I think we should approach it this way from my experience, from my opinion. So if you're just going to say sure, 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 just because manager wants it, you might find doing something else. You might find doing whatever the manager thinks QA is instead of doing actual quality assurance, instead of actually looking the product, verifying features, building test scenarios, evaluating looking from the user's perspective, and so on and so on. So if that happens with you at your work, I suggest just speak about it. Give a feedback, provide constructive feedback, meaningful feedback, saying, okay, this is what I think should be happening. This is what I think should be the priorities, and then explain why. Give a good reasoning. If you need, provide data behind it to explain why it is important, why it should be important, why you think you should be focusing on this instead of something else. Okay, so overall, I think it's a great post. I will again share the link in the description. Go and read it. And let me know what you think in the comments. This was Alex USA Days. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.